We are recording. So welcome everybody to the Community Connectivity Grant Committee special meeting of Friday, July 24th, 10 a.m. On the call, we have Bonnie Reemsnyder, member of the committee, Frank Pappalardo, member of the committee, myself, member of the committee, Mary Jo Nosel, and still waiting for Jim Lamppost to join us. Eric Olson had something come up, will try and join us. We have some members of the public who have joined us, welcome, and a member of the media, welcome. The purpose of today's meeting is just to pick up where we left off at our last meeting, but also Kurt has sent us all draft. I'm sorry. I'm gonna mute you. I'm sorry. I guess. Just while we're on that, there is going to be a public comment section, at which point I will do my best to unmute everybody. So if you want to say something to us, to the committee, that would be the time that will be allowed. As I'm going to pick up where we left off, Kurt has sent us the draft documents for the project manual and the bid documents. All of this material is draft. It all needs to be reviewed by the town attorney. I'm not sure if Tim has joined us yet. Doesn't appear so. I have asked for permission to send this to the town attorney unless he wants to. I've not heard back from him on that, but there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be reviewed. The good news is it's based on the previous project, much of it. So hopefully that will streamline the process. And obviously these are documents that our town attorney works with all the time. So I'm hoping it'll be an efficient review. And of course, none of it will go out until the DOT gives approval. That's just sort of a summary on that, but it's an important milestone for us as required by our engineering group. And so I want to thank Kurt for getting this done. There's any comments from the committee at this point? Hearing none, I am going to ask the committee for the allowance while we're waiting for Jim to move up approval of our meeting minutes of July 13th.
Are you looking for a motion to do that?
Please.
I'll move that.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion on our meeting minutes?
Now, there were a number of action items on there, Mary Jo, so
I know.
we just have to go over those action items later on at some point in time.
Yeah, I tried to identify.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that because it was quite a lengthy meeting one day.
Yes, it was. All right. So short of that, are there any other corrections that people want to note? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
And I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm going to recuse myself. I wasn't on that meeting.
Right. Okay. Can we approve then if it's just Frank and I? Probably not.
I believe so.
We can? Okay.
I believe so, because three of us are present. We're just not, I'm just not voting on it.
Right. Okay. All right. So again, Frank is an aye, Mary Jo is an aye, and Bonnie is abstained. Thank you, committee. Appreciate that very much. All right. Next, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Kurt for our discussion. Is that okay with you, Kurt? Are you ready for this?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Oh, and Jim has now joined us. Hi, Jim.
Hello, hello.
Thank you. All you missed, Jim, is we approved the minutes from last meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. And at this point, we're turning things over to BSC.
All right, thanks, Mary Jo. So as we have often done, I'll give a quick update as to where we stand with the project today. And if it's okay, I'll share my screen with our schedule. And really, this is one of the key topics that I think is important to go over today, where we stand with the project schedule relative to where we had projected. So you're all familiar with this schedule. You'll notice, and I apologize if this is a little bit small. Can everybody see this okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And we can, you can zoom in on your
Oh,
screen.
you know, let me actually do that. Oops.
Yeah, better.
There we go. Okay.
It'll probably be between 10:30 and 11.
So the blue
If-
bars were our original schedule and what we had projected. What I have done with the gray bars, as an example, is readjusted the schedule using the same time intervals to demonstrate where we are. If we were to keep the same time intervals, where would the end of our schedule end up? So this really demonstrates our schedule slippage. So you can see the red arrow that we always use to depict where we are today. If we go by the original schedule, we would be approaching the midpoint of our bidding and contracting stage. And clearly we're not there yet. So then if you look at the gray bars, and that's again just a simple pushing forward, you could see we're still in final design. And this assumes, and this is really important, if we were to complete final design as of this meeting, so that's a really important note, that all the gray bars originate at that point. So this schedule, as it stands with the gray bars, the adjustments, represents, I'm going to almost say, a theoretical adjustment, because we know that we're not going to finish today. But I just wanted to use this to demonstrate, based on that best available data, which is why I did it that way. Otherwise, it's all speculation. Where would we end up? So then we can talk about some of our next steps. So if you notice, final design construction documents pushed forward. Now, the good news is, as Mary Jo indicated, we have paralleled many of the activities. So as an example, the project manual for the project is pretty much completed. The town attorney, as Mary Jo indicated, will be reviewing the agreement, but really the project manual is done and ready to go. Just a few minor adjustments will be made once we hear back from DOT and those kinds of things. But for the most part, and that's why I wanted to send it out so people can sort of see the contents of it and those kinds of things. The final design for Hartford Avenue, very close to being completed. The one big missing piece is Shore Road. We still have not heard back from DOT District 2, so that's the asterisk that is added to this. So if we walk through the schedule, final design, construction documents, you can see where that ends at this point, given the schedule slippage, mid-August. Bidding and contracting would end in mid-October. And then theoretically, construction would begin weekending October 16th and go into first week in February. Well, we know that that's not realistic. Typically, we assume December 1st as our last real day that anything can get done. So I think it's important to have a discussion today about what we'd like to do moving forward. And I do want to add, we still haven't heard back from DOT District 2. We know they're reviewing the plans. They were formally accepted. I was given a confirmation that they were logged in, so we know that they're being reviewed. I had a discussion with Craig Babowitz from DOT Newington about the review process. He did confirm that once we receive comments back from District 2, we will address those comments. Then our revisions need to go back to District 2 so they can confirm that we made the requested revisions to their satisfaction. Then we package everything up and it goes to Craig Babowitz's entire package of plans and project manual, go to Craig Babowitz in Newington. Now, the good news is he confirmed under the Connectivity Grant Program, they do not do a cover-to-cover technical review like they did with the first project. Rather, they rely on the engineer of record and the owner to have done those kinds of things. They primarily look at it relative to compliance with the applicable bidding and contracting materials, all of which, if you so desire, you can look through that draft project manual, and they're all in there. So he and I had a lengthy discussion about what I had included. Based on that discussion, obviously he didn't have the project manual in front of him, but based on the discussion we had, I think we're in very good shape as far as addressing all the bidding, contracting materials, both for DOT work and specific to the Community Connectivity Grant Program. So I'm confident that at least his review will be very expedient. He indicated that there have been some projects, sidewalk projects in particular, that he's received, that the packages have been well put together, and he said he's actually turned them around in a week. So that was really good news. So I wanted to just highlight that, some good news relative to the schedule, but I think it is important at this time to have a discussion about realistically where we are, and given the timeframes I've shown here, where we're now pressing into what we typically look at as the winter shutdown. And that's a kind of a DOT standard too. December 1st is kind of a milestone date that's considered with a lot of things. I think we may be in a position where we need to start contemplating potentially spring construction. So I just wanted to open that up for discussion with the committee.
Thank you. I'm going to make sure our committee is unmuted here. Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate that. And I just want to see if I understand. Basically, what you're proposing is we begin to consider completing the community outreach, construction documents, bid documents, the legal review, bidding process, but in that process, having a spring construction date. Is that a summary?
Yes, that is correct. And I base that on the fact that at this point, we are literally trying to fit 10 pounds of topsoil into a 5-pound bag. If we look at these gray charts, doesn't mean we would pause or stop. We would keep moving forward diligently. Once DOT District 2 gets back to us, we would immediately incorporate those revisions, press forward as fast as we can, put it out to bid, have our public informational meetings, get a contractor signed up and ready to go, get his paperwork completed and cleared, but then wait until maybe we give them March 1, depending on how the weather goes. They could get out there and start their work. And by nature of what this is, we think this is going to move pretty quickly. You know, it's not overly complex work. This work can be done fairly quick. Because I just don't think we're going to have a contractor on board in time to be able to get anything started. We're going to be into the winter season at that point.
Yeah, Kurt, this is Frank. So rather than having a start date in, why don't we just have a completion date then and allow the contractor to start whenever it's reasonable for him to start?
Yes, you could do that. Based on my experience, and we have done that in the past, the problems we have run into with that in the past is a couple of things. Number one, if we do have a mild winter, we've had, in cases where we've had mild winters, we've had contractors go out and start doing work. So for example, they've started to go out and do some limited earthwork, excavate things, pull out curbing, and then we get into a freeze and they have to stop. And now you've got a bunch of area torn up, unstabilized from an erosion and sedimentation control standpoint. Then you get another warm spell and you've got a muddy mess, and the contractor says, well, now I'm not going to mobilize because it's just going to happen again. So now we've had situations where over the entire winter, you've had your entire site torn up. And aesthetically, it's not pleasant, but then it represents a safety hazard. It's also a real big problem from an erosion and sedimentation control standpoint. The other issue we've run into is with the construction phase services on the engineer's side. If we don't give the contractor some very defined timeframes, we are then in a response mode to trying to get out and observe the contractor's work. And what happens is the contractor will say, I'm going to be out there next week because it looks like I have a spot of weather that's going to be above freezing. I need the engineer out there to do the inspection and whatnot. And sometimes the engineer just isn't available on a few days notice. Then the contractor says, well, I'm ready, willing, and able to be out there. If you can't provide an engineer, now you're holding me up. And it gets kind of messy. And then you're forced into the decision, well, do we let the contractor go out there and do the work with no oversight so he doesn't come back and potentially make a claim that now we as the owner delayed him? Or do we push back and tell him, look, we can't get an engineer out there? No, you can't mobilize, and you do run the risk of him coming back saying, well, hey, I was willing to go out there. Now you're holding me up. So I worry that some of these contractors may try to risk doing work during the winter months. The other thing that we have experienced is the quality of work during the winter months is always compromised. We have had situations where either upon the insistence of the owner or because of other reasons, we just had to do the work in the winter. And it gets very, very, very difficult. When you think about earthwork, you've got freezing temperatures. Concrete work gets very difficult because then there's a whole added provision for cold weather concreting where we have to change the mix design, special measures for even using hot water in the mix, curing blankets, and we have noticed with a lot of consistency, the quality of the work drops. And I always cringe when we have to, and sometimes we have to, do winter work. New England weather is just not conducive to some of that finishing fine work, finishing concrete, getting the joints correct, those kinds of things. So I would advise against allowing the contractor, and this is just my technical opinion, my default position is to always advise against work during the winter months.
Any comment?
Yeah, I agree. I think we definitely need a defined schedule.
Yeah, and in your opinion, Kurt, you think that this could be done in less than 16 weeks? The concern being any construction happening after Memorial Day.
Yes, I do think it can be done in less than 16 weeks. And we could build that right into the schedule. We do have liquidated damages, so that's a very powerful tool that we can use. And because we would be building that into the project from the start, contractors bidding on the project would build that into their work plan. So they would estimate their crew sizes, et cetera, et cetera. So as an example, let's just look at Hartford Avenue, make it simple. If it was just that alone, theoretically, he could mobilize 2 crews, start at either end and work towards each other or something like that. So they would, in a bid scenario, be able to build into the project the fact that they had to get it done in 16 weeks. So I'm very confident that if we did that, and again, just to not to overstate the fact, but because we have liquidated damages, the contractors know that we're serious about this being done.
It is possible it could be an advantage to bidding as well, because bidding for a spring start job is always the contractors like that, knowing that they're going to have work as soon as spring hits. So possibly it could help with the amounts.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bonnie. Contractors, in our experience, we actually really like winter bidding, because by this time of the year where we are today, contractors have already filled up their schedule.
Yeah.
We like winter bidding because if we can get out to bid on the early side, and really in our case here, we'd probably be out to bid in the fall.
Yeah.
They are eager to at least start to gain some contractual capacity. They call it contracting momentum. They'll kind of take anything to at least get some things lined up to give them that comfort level that they can at least get their crews back to work. It's always a very stressful time opening the season. So if we're one of those first projects, and the other thing that we really have going for us is we're going to be looked upon as a small project.
Yeah.
I think contractors would aggressively bid it because they'll look at it as a really good way to get their season rolling. A nice quick project, in and out in 16 weeks, get the season started, get their momentum going. We would represent sort of a sure thing going into the 2021 construction season. So that is definitely a plus side of waiting to bid this a little bit later, targeting spring construction.
I also think it takes some of the pressure off for this year, but I do think that we need to get the informational meeting as soon as possible, the community meeting, so that people can see firsthand what's being planned and we can get those comments. So, but it does take some of the pressure off, even though we'd like to have it completed this year. Again, it's one of those things. I don't think that rushing necessarily is in our best interest.
This is Mary Jo. I absolutely concur with that. Certainly, as we know and as we discussed in all our meetings, the effort from the start was, or the purpose from the start was to get out as much information as possible for the community, like we did with the other project. But you know, we weren't planning on a pandemic, and so that's been part of the delay. But also it makes perfect sense for us, as we've said, to have our ducks in a row before we reach out to the public, to have our plans, have a budget so that we are giving the public our best information and agreed upon information as opposed to different scenarios. That's just confusing. And so I think we've moved along as fast as we could given the situation we're in. And I think the plans we made at our last meeting make a lot of sense, and we'll discuss that some more. And actually, at the Board of Selectmen meeting, Tim Griswold had mentioned a suggestion too, to move that along. So, it all makes sense to me, but Bonnie, I agree, we need to get this out as soon as possible. And we're certainly within the time frame of the grant. We're not in jeopardy of losing our grant.
Yeah, and I can confirm based on my discussion with Craig Babowitz that there's no issues with the grant. I actually have our second update going into him today. I gave him a verbal update. He was very pleased with the progress we've made. And also, yeah, one of the things that you reminded me of, Mary Jo, in my discussion with him relative to the public information, he stressed that it is important to make sure that we understand what District 2's feedback is. He was concerned if we were to go out to the public and talk about the project with unknowns or placeholders, if you will, we run the risk of putting out information that then may change based upon District 2's feedback. So he was very understanding that it was important to wait for District 2 to give us their feedback on the Shore Road piece before we go out to the public.
If I could just pick up right there, Kurt, I agree that we need to get, in front of the public soon, much information out as possible. And I also think it is important to get the DOT feedback to see what's, realistic for us. I took a quick look at the documents that were sent yesterday. Didn't have time to read through them. Thank you for everything. I didn't see, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place or where we would see it, but I didn't see a place where the bid would get broken out into components. My huge concern, again, and I just want to drop it right here, is that we are, for the entire project, already theoretically thinking it's probably, we're going to be lucky if we're at budget for the entire project. So at some point, it's quite likely, we may get lucky and do the whole thing for $400,000, but it's quite likely we're not going to be able to do all of Hartford, all of Shore. And I'm very concerned that we go in front of the public and say, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and, turn around and we can't complete Shore, or, we decide that we need to maybe add more stuff into Hartford and make it better, and we can't do Shore at all. Whatever it is, I don't want to go in front of the public soon and give them this whole production with Shore Road and Hartford, and then we come in at 450, 475. We're not going back to the town or to the voters for more money. That's pretty clear. And if we overpromise and then we don't deliver, it's going to be our heads on a platter.
Yeah, and that's the budget and the scope of the project was kind of my second major item, so that's a great segue. I did give Craig an update as to kind of where we were with budget and whatnot. And by the way, he was already aware that the plans are at District 2. I'm not sure if they actually provided him with a set of plans, but a few things that I mentioned, he said, "Oh yeah, I know that you're." So clearly they're communicating, which is a good thing. I had asked him some questions regarding that and gave him some suggestions, and kind of where we arrived was, number one, yes, we need to finalize our budget so we know what we have available for the project. Then the committee, depending on what we have left, the committee needs to make a decision. If we have monies left, and I'm looking at Hartford Avenue as sort of phase one, Shore Road phase two, just for sake of splitting it out. Okay, we cover Hartford Avenue. What do we have left? What can we get done on Shore Road? And the committee then would need to make a decision. Where do you want to do the work on Shore Road? And Craig did confirm he would want to see that, and he would review it and give us feedback. So in other words, he's saying he'll want to approve if we only do a piece of Shore Road where that happens. But then we also talked about using alternates in the bid. And I think that's a very good tool we have available to us. So as an example, the base bid would be, let's say, Hartford Avenue and whatever piece of Shore Road the committee chooses. Then if we picked the second segment or a second desired segment on Shore Road, we would put that in the documents as add alternate one, as an example. So if the bids did come in really favorably and you found that, wow, we actually have monies left over, you would have a price and you'd be ready to go with that add alternate segment. It would already be in the bid. It would already be part of the contract. And then it's extremely easy to just make that part of the whole project versus adding it later on. So the add alternate is a tool that I think we should use because we don't know where the bids will come in. So there's no harm because we're going to have the design done anyway. That's the beauty of this. The design will be done. So let's use those add alternate tools. And that way we'll get some bid pricing. It'll be actual bid pricing. And if we get lucky and it's favorable, very easy to just say, yep, add alternate one is now included in the contract, proceed. And by the way, we would put it in there that you don't get any more time. It's still the same time frame. You just have to make it work. And that would just be part of the price of the alternate. We do that a lot, that, you know, we're not going to give you another 4 weeks just for the alternate. That's a tool that we have available to us. And Jim, to answer your question very specifically about the documents, you probably noticed the bid form that's in there. I think it's very early in the package. Mm-hmm. In that bid form is where the bid items will be included. And that's another question that I had for the committee when we get to that juncture regarding how that's structured. But all of that would be in the bid form, all the various items. So right now you'll see, I think it's highlighted in yellow. It just says insert bid items here. And we simply do that when everything is done. Once all the reviews are in, we then just plug in, and keep in mind, these are all, well, not all, but for the most part, fairly standard DOT bid items. So for example, compacted granular fill, that's a standard DOT bid item. Concrete sidewalk per square foot, standard item. So there's probably at this point 50 or 60 items that the contractor will give pricing on. And then the tally of all those items is the bid price. So that'll get plugged in as we go through the final construction documents phase.
Thank you.
Kurt, do we need to decide today does the committee have to weigh in today in order to move the documents along, whether they want to, they prefer an add alternate for road? Because if so, you know, I would like to get feedback on which sections of Shore Road seems to be the most important to the committee.
No, absolutely not. You do not need to decide that today. Because we're going to design the whole thing anyway, that's something that could be done literally within a week of this going out to bid. because the design's completed, that's almost as simple as a couple of minor modifications on the drawing and some modifications to the bid form. And that's about it. So no, absolutely not. I think it's something that the committee should discuss. And then what I would suggest is once the committee makes a decision, in the meantime, we will be continuing to finalize and revise. We could regroup, and then at some point, my recommendation would be to present that to Craig Babowitz, because we would want to make sure that whatever was decided passes muster with DOT. We wouldn't want to get into a situation where we're now approaching the bid and then we give it to him and he says, no, I don't like that. And that could cause some turmoil. So let's take advantage of the fact we have the time. The committee should contemplate that. Once a decision is made, let's present it to Craig, get his buy-in, and then we can know that DOT has sanctioned our approach.
Thank you.
And I guess, I'm not sure if now is the time to talk about it, but one thing that I did want to bring to light, I had mentioned the items of construction that DOT uses. You'll probably notice in that package, there's a cover sheet. I think it's actually at the very end, and it's called special provisions. Those are essentially technical specifications, and not to get bogged down to the details, but the way DOT works is you'll see in those Form 817 referenced many times. Form 817 is the Connecticut DOT's standard specifications. So anytime the DOT does work, the Form 817, and it's literally a book, that is all of their standard specifications for everything they build. When we do projects, we reference Form 817 as the standard specifications. So as an example, Form 817 defines in very specific terms how a sidewalk is built. So instead of reinventing the wheel in these contracts, we simply tell the contractor, follow Form 817. And in that case, you have consistency for the most part across the state of Connecticut. It's a good system. And DOT, being experts at building things, we know that their specifications are quality and well proven, et cetera, et cetera. However, every job has unique aspects to it, and the Form 817 can't cover every possibility in the world. So we use what are called special provisions for those other items that may not be included in the Form 817. So for example, mailboxes. If we're contemplating any work with mailboxes, you will not find anything that addresses that in Form 817. So we write a special provision, which is essentially just a technical specification that talks about whatever we're asking the contractor to do with the mailboxes. Then on the bid form, and this kind of goes back to what you had brought up, Jim, there will be a item called mailboxes or whatever you want to call it, and that will just be another priced item that he bids on. And then we decide when those things are set up, depending on what the work is it per mailbox? Is it a lump sum, meaning it's all the mailboxes? So that's just a clarification of how we're sort of taking the DOT's standard materials and our custom materials, bringing them together, and that's how the contractor is guided for the work that he does, in addition to the drawings. One question that I had, and it's, again, it's not something we need to decide today, but it's something to think about. I keep mentioning these items, and for those that were involved in the previous project, you may recall that there was a construction inspector down there because under that program, it was federal highway money. The town had to hire somebody to be there full time. regardless of how little or as much work was taking place. As we had talked about for this project, and I confirmed with Craig, I got into a lot of detailed discussion about what our requirements were for observing and inspecting the work. And by the way, our discussion that we had, we are in sync with what is typical, what's been done, and what we normally do, and that's the periodic inspection, depending on what work is being done. This contract can be structured one of two ways, and depending on the nature of work, we see two different ways out in the industry. The standard way DOT does things, and again, similar to the last project, is all these various items. So when the contractor bids the project, as I mentioned, there could be 50 items on the bid form. There are estimated quantities for every one of those items. And if you recall, when we looked at the cost estimates several weeks back, the spreadsheets, they were all the line items and each one had a quantity associated with it. When the contractor bids the project, he will bid every one of those items and sort of build the project. And then we add up the value of those items, and that's the bid. When the contractor gets signed up and he does the work, he gets paid on the actual quantity that is in the field when the work is completed. Now that quantity could slightly go up or it could slightly go down. And the reason DOT does it that way is because they know that there can be some variability in the field. Very common, and that's exactly how the previous project was done. So the inspector that was out there full time was measuring the quantities. So as an example, they're pouring sidewalks. At the end of the day, he literally takes his tape measure and measures the area of the sidewalks that were poured, logs that, and at the end of the month, the contractor tallies up how many square feet of sidewalk he has poured. He knows what his bid price is, and that's what he charges the town in that month's statement. On projects where you have periodic inspection, you sometimes run into the issue of, because there's not somebody out there every day, the work is being done and quantities still need to be measured. The other tool we have available to us, and most private work, as an example, is done this way, is a lump sum, where you tell the contractor, we're not going to be measuring quantities. Here are the plans and specifications. This is what we want built, and you're going to give us a price to build it, period. And that's it. If there's a change in the work, if we add something or whatnot, there are provisions to adjust the price. But other than that, you're going to bid on this project and you're going to get paid a certain amount when all is said and done. And that's it. We're not going to measure all the different quantities. You own it once you bid on it. I have seen some public work similar to this done in that manner. So I guess my question to the committee, and I didn't want to ask Craig this question without permission of the committee, would the committee be interested in finding out if this project could be done as a lump sum versus a, what I'll call typical DOT type project where it's broken out into all the individual items? Sorry that was so long-winded, but I wanted to give you the background.
I'll jump in here if I may. I'm kind of in favor. This is a pretty linear project. There's not a lot of area where it can go awry. We know how many feet of sidewalk there are. We know what the topography is. They're not digging into the ground at any great depth, so we don't have to worry about possibly running into old pipes or cisterns like we had in the southern part of Hartford Avenue. There's so many feet of curbing. There's not a lot of things that could go wrong with this particular project. We understand what it's all about. It's all on the surface. I'm very much in favor of lump sum project. I think that that's the cleanest way we can put this project together, and I believe it's going to give us the best possible price that allows the contractor to use whatever efficiencies he can use, multiple crews, whatever, to get this job completed in his most efficient manner. He can make the most money. We get the best bang for our buck. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Frank.
I would agree with Frank. I think that at the very least, we need to get the price for that and find out if it's acceptable to Craig Babowitz to get, to do it in that manner. And, we can make that decision later, but I think that a lump sum might be the way to go.
This is Mary Jo, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. We should at least pursue that possibility.
All right, so with the committee's permission, I will, as soon as this meeting is over, in fact, email Craig Babowitz and ask him if that's okay. And then if he says yes, I'll have a conversation with him just to find out if there's anything specific that we need to do, to make sure that it complies with the Community Connectivity Grant Program. But that's great. Thank you. I'll circle back with what he says.
Thanks.
Thank you. I had a number of questions I did a quick review of the documents that you sent. There's a lot of paperwork, and I have a number of questions. And rather than take up the time here, I was going to ask the committee if they would do a review of the documents for any major omissions, concerns, and send them to me, in which case I will send them to Kurt for feedback. Obviously, this is sort of time sensitive because we want to get this done as soon as possible. But I have to say, in general, I thought everything looked really good, which because I was able to get through them so quickly, they look really good. So thank you. A lot of it is just based on our experience from the last project. And of the things I focused on just for the committee is the invitation to bid and the bid documents themselves. The contract, I believe, will obviously be something we really have to have the attorneys careful review. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mary Jo, I think it's really important to get it to the attorneys as soon as possible. They need time to look this over. It appeared to me that it's very similar to the other document, and I believe they are the same firm that reviewed that. So a reminder of that may be helpful to the attorney, because much of the language is the same. And Kurt, I can't recall, but if there were any adjustments that were made, they were based on attorney recommendations, and I believe a conference call between you, me, and the attorneys.
Yes.
But it's really important to give them the time to review it. I think as far as the committee is concerned, it's the details of this specific project that we should be looking at, as you pointed out. But there's a lot that the attorneys really have to look at. So the sooner they get it, better.
And I can confirm the contract, the general provisions, and the special conditions that I sent Mary Jo were from the other project. So I started with that version that had been finalized with the attorneys. Obviously made some adjustments for this project, but really not a lot of adjustments. In fact, most of the things that were modified tended to simplify. I noticed that there were a few things in there that were kind of duplicative So I deleted some things out of the special conditions, added some things in the special conditions specific to the community connectivity grant program. But other than that, it's pretty much the same agreement package that was used for the previous project. And of course, things like insurance, that'll have to be
Yeah.
updated for what the town wants.
Right, right.
But
So is it possible to give them a document that shows the changes that you made from the other one? Because that may just make it that much quicker for the attorneys and keep the fees down.
I could try to put that together. It could get a little messy.
If not, they can do a comparison. They're able to do a comparison between the
And
two.
I'm happy to have a conference call too with them to walk them through some of the background and talk about what I changed, if that would help.
Mm.
Tim, what do you think about that, Tim? You think what do you think is going to be the best approach, Tim, to streamline the attorney's review of this of the documentation, which is quite lengthy?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm being heard at all.
You
You
are,
are
Yep.
now?
You are.
Oh, good. Yeah, because before I couldn't get in. Yeah, I think we can, if it's the same attorney and it's a very similar project, hopefully the learning curve has been already climbed. So that should be easier than starting fresh. And you can say whether you want more on that, but I wanted to mention that with the other projects that are going on, I know that the Connecticut Water will be coming back to Soundview after Labor Day for hooking up laterals, and not sure just where they all will be. So by not being working in Hartford Avenue in the fall, if they have any laterals at that part of the street, that would be helpful.
Yep.
The other issue will be if any of the force main work that will be probably happening next year, that may be beyond the scope of when we're going. But if we start, say, in February or March, we got to be sensitive as to when the force main. See, that's in Portland, so I think it won't really involve Hartford Avenue. So I think that will be compatible. But just be advised, it's going to be a busy time in Soundview.
yeah, thank
Usually is.
So Tim, based on the memo I sent you after our last meeting and the discussion of the Board of Selectmen meeting, what I need is your permission to send these documents to the attorney for review, so that they can look at the draft and we can get going. In the meantime, the committee can look at them and send me their concerns, questions, which we can discuss, and if necessary, send those on. Do I have your approval, or do you?
I would say that if the committee and the engineer vet it, then what we send to the attorney will be that much better and more concise, so that's fine.
Okay.
Who did we use before?
I thought it was Mary Lynn reviewed these last time, Bonnie, but you know better
I
than
can't recall. I'd have to look at the dates.
I know that the current town attorney reviewed the agreement for BSC and the town, but so they're aware of the project, but the actual construction documents, I think under the previous attorney. But obviously, our current town attorney, as we know, Tim, does a really good job with contracts, but I think the sooner we get this to them, the better, because we know that they look at everything very, very closely.
Sure.
So I'm feeling confident with your approval, given the fact that at least an attorney has vetted these. We had a full federal project based on the templates, that these are in pretty good shape to send to the attorney.
Sure, I think so.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to send those on to our attorney then today. But Kurt, one thing I did notice that wasn't in there was the temporary access agreements.
Right, those are referenced in numerous locations in the package. and it states that we'll provide those to the contractor. They would not typically be part of the bid documents because
Okay.
those are going to be legal agreements between the town and the private property owners. So it talks about that the contractor is responsible for coordinating with the private citizens for all things regarding any work on private property, but that the town will provide copies of the temporary access agreements to the contractor.
But we need to have those reviewed by our attorney. So
Yes, absolutely. And we won't be able to finish those until we finalize and confirm the scope of the work and get, I guess, the homeowner's blessing of specifically what the work is.
Kurt, along that line, I received a package from a representative of the homeowners, and probably there were 8 persons who signed a form, which they have issues with some of the proposal here. And I thought that there had been some discussion with the homeowners previously that might have allayed some of those concerns, but I think we're going to have to very shortly, as soon as possible, meet with individual people. Optimally, if we could meet them on site, that would be good.
Yes.
You know, the Corona thing, trying to have a bunch of people in a hall is, you know, you're not there. So I think we have an undercurrent of dissatisfaction. So I think the sooner we get a team set up to meet with the homeowners and vet their concerns, if they can be addressed to their satisfaction, fine. But hopefully we can get that going as soon as possible. I mean, if we're not going to be going out to bid and doing things right away, this gives us an opportunity to refine that. And if there are any tweaks to the whole project, why this delay would be helpful to incorporate this process.
Yes, I think it's a great idea. And as we've talked about in several of our previous meetings, we'll literally meet right out there on Hartford Avenue, and whatever particular homeowners would like to engage, we'll have the plans. I'll have my tape measure, you know, and I can literally show in real time, real place where things are proposed. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, and I don't know how much time it would take per person, but if we identified a couple of Saturdays, maybe for 2 or 3 hours per,
Sure.
then we could just go boom, boom, boom down the line and try to
Yep.
meet with the one. There may be some who will not meet, but at least we can provide the opportunity and give that a good, a fair hearing.
Yes, and I think we're at a stage where we can begin to line those meetings up now. If the committee feels comfortable with where we are in the design, you know, we're now at the stage where we're just what I call putting the final polish on things. It does seem that we're at a point where we should start having those meetings.
Yes, yes.
I think that at our last meeting, we discussed, and I don't think you were with us, Tim, at the last meeting. We did discuss what the town's position is. We're not taking anybody's property. We're not doing anything to anybody's property. This is all being done on town property. So I think, Mary Jo, you're going to check in and just determine whether we're on firm standing regarding, you know, doing what we're going to do on town property, with or without the homeowner's permission.
But it would be, I think it would be good public relations and very sensible for the process to have people have an opportunity to see it up close. And for some of us who don't know the nitty gritty of each property, we could their concerns, and maybe there can be some accommodation, maybe not. We'll just have to see.
Oh, by all means, Tim, I agree wholeheartedly. We want to talk to the people that have concerns and you know, explain to them exactly what's going on and how we're doing it. If there's a tweak that can be made, you know, reasonable, then I agree. You know, we should do whatever whatever we could possibly do. I think a lot of the information lot of concern is either lack of information or misinformation. And I think once Kurt gets in front of them, can actually show people what's happening, how it's happening, and you know, the improvements. I don't think it'll fix a lot of concern of the property owners. So I do agree, you know, getting out in front of people and hearing their concerns and working with them individually is a great thing to do.
Yeah.
And that has always been our intention. We talked about that from the very beginning, that we wanted to make sure that people were comfortable with this and that we addressed concerns, because we did know that there were some drainage issues, some issues with how driveways go in and stuff like that. So it's always been our intention to do that.
Well,
Right.
maybe we could set up some potential Saturdays and then get the word out and see, get people to actually make a commitment for a certain day and time, and we can make it efficient for everyone.
Right. The other thing we discussed, Tim, as I just told you, is that we have planned to put the graphics of the plans themselves on display at Town Hall. Perhaps members of the committee can sign up to be there on occasion, and people can come in and, you know, groups of 1 or 2 to look at it. And I thought that was a really good idea. That came from our CEO. The other thing that we shared is that people are going to have individual packets of information that Kurt's going to work on. And I like the idea of having appointments at the residence. But as you know, we did have the community walkthrough. At the beginning of the project, we did advertise that, and we had a couple members of the public join us. So we've also had letters. Everyone got a letter about general information on the project. People that needed additional pictures taken on the project received letters also. And as Frank noted last time, information has come out on each of the Soundview Commission member meetings, and also the Soundview Beach Association updates to the community. And then, of course, we discuss it at every single Board of Selectmen meeting.
I think that I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One of the other things we did talk about, and I mentioned this, and it's in our meeting minutes for last meeting, is that we're going to try to quantify the slope and the water runoff that is occurring now and is potentially not going to occur in the future because of the way the sidewalks and the curbing will be configured. It's roughly 8 feet, 10 feet of land that now slopes back towards the houses with water problems, that will no longer be sloping back to the house with the water problems, and now will be sloping towards the street gutter. So we're going to take surface water, which is presently going onto people's property, and redirecting it onto the street for capture in the catch basins. And I think, Kurt, you're going to try to quantify that number, put some sort of handle on it, whether, you know, in terms of gallons per day or gallons per whatever, gallons per rainstorm or percentage of whatever. I'm not quite sure what the potential is for an engineer to do that, but I do know on water surface runoff, there are calculations that can be made. So have you been able to look at that as a potential?
Yes, yep, that's actually in the works, and you're correct. By under current conditions, we, for the most part, begin to slope back towards the properties from the curb because of the existing topography. The improvements will be sloped towards what we call the gutter line. So we will actually reverse that slope. So the water that falls on either the sidewalk or the grass strip, that will all now be redirected towards the road as opposed to being directed towards the private properties.
There are, I think, 2 different tracks on this, on public comment. One of them are the technical aspects of the project, and I think we've definitely thought about that, and, you know, we have responses to it. And so when homeowners come to us and they say, you know, well, how's this going to impact our property? I think the information, an informational meeting would be great, and I think it'll address a lot of those issues. And then the homeowners themselves may have something we haven't thought of, where we go, wow, yeah, that's doable, and that's not going to cost $1 million, So there's that aspect of it. The other aspect is, I think we're starting to get some feedback, and just to put it out there, we just got this email from Mary Jo, from Angela, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name, Gianfrido. And it's just kind of a general, I don't want sidewalks, period. It's going to bring, right now, they may know that it's town property, but pedestrians don't. So yes, a sidewalk will probably, get more people closer to their home. That's probably true. It may generate more trash. Where I am on Portland, I get a ridiculous amount of trash from people. And since I put up fences, I don't. The trash stays on the street side, and I have to go out there twice a week and clean it up. But these are concerns, and the concern, I don't know how widespread this is, of, when we began the project, most homeowners and business owners were like, terrific, this is great, love it. And now that we're pretty much ready to go, we're starting to get some people going, I don't want this at all. I know it's on town property. I know the town has a right to do it. I know the grant's in place. The state wants to see it, et cetera, et cetera. I think we as a committee need to, decide how we're going to address these issues, and what our approach would be to homeowners who just say, no, take your money and take it somewhere else, give it back to the state, go home.
Yeah, I think that, Jim, I think I read the letter, and some people have commented to me on numerous occasions, well, take the $400,000 and do something else with it. And once again, it's part of the misinformation package. We can't. It's either goes back to the state or doesn't. Right. The other part is, there's going to be a certain number of people that just don't want it. It's a change, and they don't want it. And there's really nothing we can do with that and changing their minds. We could try. It is a safety concern. I was driving down Hartford Avenue the other night. It must have been around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Just at dusk time, and the upper part, there were people walking on the street. It was an incredibly unsafe situation. And these are the types of things that we're trying to alleviate, trying to make better. I had an opportunity to talk to one of the business people this morning, and he's really very happy with the whole sidewalk project, and thinks that it would be a great advantage to his particular business, and especially the people on Shore Road. So there's pros and cons. I've gotten emails from people in Old Lyme Shores that want the sidewalks extended all the way to Old Lyme Shores on Shore Road too. So, pros and cons, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Frank, and this is Mary Jo. I can tell you, you had indicated that you said I was going to find out if we were on firm standing to do this. Certainly we were on firm standing. It's town property. I did confirm with planning that the design standard is a 5-foot sidewalk, and I shared that with residents that asked me about that. Kurt also informed me that's the DOT standard, and in actuality, they have a document that indicates how much passing room people are supposed to have, and it equals out to 5 foot. So we really don't have any legal reason to shorten that or ability to reduce the width of the sidewalk. We would run into some real problems, but we investigated that. As far as the easement issue we talked about, that I had sent updated Tim in a memo too. I really think we need to run that by our attorney as part of this information we're sending them, because I do not know how to address that. I made our CEO aware of those concerns. We have up to 1 or up to 3 possible easements we have to look into. Was there anything else, Frank, that you thought I was going to address?
No, I can't. I mean, those were the things that came to mind at this point in the conversation. So
Right. All
I
right.
just thought it would be appropriate to talk about them now because Tim had some concerns, and I think that for anybody that's listening, I think that our objective is to try to do the best we can with the situation we have in hand, and I think that Kurt, once he gets an opportunity to meet with the individuals out there and show them exactly what the plan is, I think that they'll, if they're not predisposed to, not accepting sidewalks at all, then I think they'll understand it. We'll be pleased with the approach.
Right.
Well, I think there's sentiment for a 4 foot instead of a 5 foot, but once we hear the comments, we can review what we hear and talk to the engineers and see what's possible. So it's tough to make any prejudgments at this point, but I think it's important to have these meetings, and maybe we can get that going in August so that before the summer is over, people could meet.
Great. So just in summary on the community outreach planning, it sounds like we're going to arrange some Saturday sessions for community members to meet in a safe fashion with our engineers or any of the committee that's available to discuss the project and in particular their individual frontage area. We're going to have graphics and information on the project at Town Hall for people to look at, and I think that's the safe, responsible way to do that given COVID. And then packets of individual information, which will include at some point the approvals for the work on primarily driveways to make the project look good for the homeowner, will be available. Just to backtrack a little bit on that, Kurt, I know we can't finalize those for the attorney. Do you see any value in putting the basic template without the specifics in the packet for the attorney's review? Or was that a waste of time?
No, well, I mean, I already, they're all completed in draft form. So I'm happy to, and they all use the same exact template. So I'm happy to send you one. I think I had presented one at a previous committee meeting. I'll just use that one. Okay. And, the way that they're structured is they're all the same. And then the sort of the body of the agreement simply talks about specifically what the work is. Okay. So after this meeting, I will send that to you in Word format. Great. So he can look at that too.
Great. Yeah, then I can send them one package. That'd be great. Anything else on community outreach?
So we're not going to have any general full-blown meeting out there. And one of the things I may want to suggest is we're going to meet with the individual property owners on that side of the street as we can. But maybe we ought to have an opportunity for anybody else that wants to meet to sign up for a time that we can meet with them someplace. Jackson, yeah. I don't know.
I think that's the one thing I forgot. We talked about having just a session like by Zoom where people could also volunteer to talk to us, an hour and get some general overview of the project and then some Q&A.
And as part of the connectivity grant program, we are obligated to have that one public informational meeting so we can have our plans, even the photos. We'll put together, I'll work with the committee to put together a little mini presentation using a forum like this, and then kind of like what we've typically done, a little presentation and then the Q&A.
Kurt, does that have to be a certain number of days before the project goes out to bid, or we can have it sufficiently far in advance?
We could have it farther in advance. My suggestion, depending on the timing of when people are around, is let's do it. Well, I guess one advantage is Zoom, if you have an internet connection, you can get to it. But look at when you feel as a committee, the most people would be available, and then, schedule it around that. And DOT just wants to know that you have had an informational session, and then
Would we be obliged to do both Hartford Avenue and Route 156 Shore Road? Or could we split it up?
it's just a single buy project. So this is a single project. So all you need to do is have the one meeting for the whole project.
Okay, so you would have Shore Road in there to be complete?
Yes.
Yes.
So I would suggest that we would probably want to schedule that meeting after we have the opportunity to talk to the individual property owners.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So we, maybe end of August, beginning of September.
That makes sense. And we would have for folks that aren't able to get a computer access, a call-in number so that people can call in on the phones too.
Right.
All right, so then I'm gonna last call anybody else on this. All right, then we're gonna move into correspondence. Tim already informed us he received some correspondence from some property owners on Hartford Avenue. Tim, are you planning to share that with us at some point?
We've got a lawnmower outside here. It's the same form signed by a variety of people, and so I can get that to you. I'll put it in your box. They aren't individual letters. It's just signatures on a similar form with some annotation.
Well, would you be able to have Michelle scan it for the committee then, so that everyone gets it?
That's what I was going to ask.
Oh, sorry, Bonnie.
Yep.
No, that's okay.
We'll do that.
Thank you. The other thing I think I shared with everybody, I had a couple of conversations over the phone with Mrs. Portalance. I got back to her on those, and as I already iterated or told everybody, that our main concern was the town standards and DOT standards on the side of the size of the road, the width of the road, or sidewalk rather, and if there was any opportunity to modify that. And then I did receive some written comments that I shared with everyone, as Jim noted, from Mrs. Jean Frito. And again, as Jim already pointed out, if I'm summarizing correctly, her issues are, concern about privacy and trash. It's fair to recognize. Is there any other correspondence that people have received that want to share? All right. At this point, I am going to try and unmute everybody. Hold on a second. Come, I can do this when I don't have to do it.
There you are. You're working at it. You're getting there.
There's an easier way. Okay.
Yeah.
If I've done that right, the public is now available or online to talk with us. And if you would kindly state your name, your address before your comments, that would be helpful to us. Also, just want to let you guys know we're not under any requirement to respond to you as a committee unless we choose, but your comments will be recorded on this meeting and will be available for anybody to look at, and we'll have that in our minutes also. I noticed that Sandy Butcher is on video. Do you want to go first, Sandy?
Yeah, I'm not on video. I've got just a blank. Sorry. Can you see me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, Sandra Butcher,
Okay.
29 Hartford Avenue, on the west side of Hartford Avenue where the sidewalks are going. During the last administration, the crown of the road was changed. The drainage into our driveway. I put the town on notice by certified mail according to our attorney, how that should be rectified. that the problem was created by the town, which we didn't have before. And we kept on getting promises that Public Works would look at it, Public Works would look at it. Here it is years later. I do not want sidewalks to take more ground cover unless this problem's going to be rectified. I do not feel that the town has addressed our concerns. There is a drainage pit on the street, our front door towards the beach, that our driveway happens to be. And we keep getting runoff. And I don't think anybody on the committee would expect them or their spouse to have to take off their shoes and socks when it rains, when we get a flood in our driveway, and we've been putting it up for years. Now, I'm a cranky old lady now, and I chewed Tim's ear off with communication this morning, but I didn't hear him address it. And if it's not addressed this time with this project, our attorney is Shipman and Goodwin in Hartford, and that's who I will be directing this concern to. I feel we've been more patient to have this done. We got pushed aside. Also, the drains in Hartford Avenue are mosquito pits. I don't know where they drain to other than from our house to the house across the street. And certainly some of this water that's in the pit should be going down and out a drain somewhere. I'm very upset with the town on this, and I hope that we'll get something in writing that this will be addressed and taken care of. I also would like in writing that none of the homeowners on Hartford Avenue will be responsible for snow removal on a town sidewalk, because most of us are not down there during the winter. Where we are at home, we are responsible, and we can get cited for sidewalks that are not shoveled or ice removal. And I do not feel that is fair to the community. I don't want the sidewalks, to tell you the truth, because my dining room table will be right on Hartford Avenue as eating our dinner. Guess that's all my thoughts. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sandy. This is Mary Jo, and as just for the committee's recollection, Sandy and her husband attended our walk project, shared their concerns directly with our engineer and the committee. They attended we had a meeting down at the Shore Community Center right at the beginning of the project before COVID was open to the public, was noticed to the public. And Sandy attended that meeting. There was media presentation, and we did address the fact that the road crowning happened many years ago. As far as drainage issues, I would say this project is for connectivity. We will not be doing any drainage work.
Great.
Is there somebody else who would like to?
Yes, there is. This is Elizabeth Portalance from 31 Hartford Avenue. I had presented Tim with a petition from the people on Hartford Avenue that this is affecting, and every single person that owns a home there has signed the paper saying no sidewalks. They are trying to address the problems they have with drainage and the fact that there is so much litter for them to pick up all of the time, and they do not want bicycles and skateboards going down in front of their front doors. The sidewalks, if it becomes a situation where it's an absolute necessity, Tim has a paper with the petition, and we are asking for narrower sidewalks that hit the berm of the road and do not infringe on everyone's privacy. Now, a 5-foot sidewalk and a 2.5-foot grassy area, that's what Tim had told me it is, puts all of this too close to the property owners. And they're the people that pay the taxes. And a sidewalk could be put in, but it doesn't have to be like a thoroughfare. And you've already narrowed Hartford Avenue. I don't understand, if you're worried about people walking, why don't you take back what you gave us to take care of and put a bicycle, whatever, lines there, and everything will be just fine. They can walk in that white area. And it has gotten, out of hand here because you try to talk to one person, they never get back to you. Several people that I spoke to have never gotten any information. A lot of them are elderly and past the stage of going to town meetings. And this is all a surprise to them. And some of the houses were built in the 30s and 40s, and they're lower. They're lower than the road. And that's ruining the whole atmosphere of that area of Hartford Avenue. And now the other side of Hartford Avenue is starting to get concerned. They don't want sidewalks either. And I wonder if Portland Avenue wants sidewalks. Maybe we should check into that. And maybe there should have been something put out to begin with asking if anybody wanted sidewalks before it was decided upon that the $400,000 would be used to give people something that they really don't want. On the weekend, my husband and I had our grandson, who was 18 months old, in a stroller on the sidewalk on Hartford Avenue where the condos are, and two older boys came down the sidewalk on bicycles. And my husband had to step in front of the stroller and say to the boys, hey, you're not supposed to be on the sidewalk with bicycles. And any one of you, especially Frank, who's around all of the time, you know that the kids are always on bicycles on those sidewalks over at the carousel shop and up and down, and the same with the skateboards. I think this whole project should be thought about with people in mind, not what is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Is there anybody else? Going once? Twice? 3 times. Okay, I'm going to end the public comment. Thank you, everybody. On our agenda is to schedule the next meeting. And I know that we have a little bit of work. We'll send out what we can to the town attorneys. We're planning to do some graphics to put together, scheduling to do with homeowners. It's going to take some time. And I know there are people that will be taking a well-deserved break during these periods too. So I'm cognizant of all of that. And if the committee could give their best thoughts on maybe next meeting, but also potentially their availability to be around for some of these presentations, it would be very helpful. And if
sorry.
Go ahead, Frank.
I have a question, Mary Jo, regarding what constitutes a meeting. If Kurt has a meeting with a property owner on Hartford Avenue, let's say a number of the committee members are part of that, does that constitute a meeting?
Frank, I think it would be like inland wetlands where the committee goes out to inspect something. So I think it would be a meeting if you have a quorum of members. And it could just be briefly noted that it's site visits, discussion with homeowners. You know, you don't have to keep elaborate minutes unless you feel it's necessary to document your visit.
I just want to make sure we're on firm, legal and ethical footing here with meetings.
I'd recommend it.
Yeah, Frank, when we get schedules for everything pulled together, we'll definitely can just send that notice to the town clerk.
And what we might do is to give people certain time slots so that there's a definite time slot. These kinds of things can go on and on. So if you want to be efficient, we can determine which property should be invited, and some will not attend. But with the ones that do, I recommend we allocate a fixed amount of time, same for each one. And then when that time runs out, we have to stop, because otherwise the thing will take too long. But I guess we could find out who's available for certain Saturdays and try to make a matrix and find out which property owner should be invited, and then try to make the schedule up.
Right. And whoever is there, someone is going to have to take minutes, because I will not be at each of these, just so you know. Whoever's there is going to be responsible for collecting the basic information and submitting that to the committee and to the town clerk.
I have a general question. Kurt, maybe you can address this one for us. Thinking about Ms. Portlance's remarks about moving the sidewalk to the curb. I'm assuming that we can't do that because of street signs, mailboxes, etc. Is it a possibility to move that sidewalk to the curb? I know we have to keep a 5-foot sidewalk versus a 4 for various regulations. Is it practical to move it to the curb?
Yep, it is possible. The problem is because of, like you said, the mailboxes, the roadway signs, which are defined, the signs are defined by DOT, and where they can be relative to the face of curb. The sidewalk, we would almost be back where we were before, with 7.5 feet of a continuous sidewalk. So in other words, the back of sidewalk wouldn't change, because we still need that buffer area for the signs, and we need to maintain. In other words, we can't take credit for a portion of the sidewalk that is blocked with a sign. So the usable area of the sidewalk would have to start at the edge of the sign and go back. So you really wouldn't gain anything. So when DOT and the PROAG, which is the guide for pedestrian facilities in public, it's a national, when they talk about a 5-foot sidewalk, they literally mean 5 foot clear and unobstructed. So then signs, mailboxes, trash cans need to be in addition to that 5 feet.
Kurt, just to clarify, are the regulations of this grant require a 5-foot sidewalk? Is that a debate or is that an absolute?
I treat it as an absolute, because as DOT has indicated, well, let me back up. The grant specifically references DOT standards, which are 5 foot. The PROAG standards, which for the most part talk about 5 feet, but then they also reference town standards, and your town standards are 5-foot sidewalks. There are instances, in my career, I've never experienced it, for the most part, I've seen 5 foot as a minimum, and then people usually want to go larger because of wheelchair access and those kinds of things. But DOT has said that there have been rare occasions where for small segments of sidewalks, they have allowed 4 feet, but that there has to be a very compelling reason. For example, we literally don't have any real estate, so we would need to purchase that extra 1 foot strip from a property, and that's simply not possible. In this case, where you have right-of-way and right-of-way to spare, my speculation is that it would not entertain relaxing the standards in this case.
Yeah, the other thing that Jim brings up, the point, of moving the sidewalk closer to the street. But then we look at the other aspect of it. The sidewalk will help the runoff move onto the street. And we're taking, roughly 7 feet of space that right now runoff moves into people's front yards, and we're taking that and redirecting it onto the street. If we shift the sidewalk, we're not making the water problem any better. So, I mean, it's a balancing situation. We're trying to make the water problem better. We obviously have some drainage issues on some of these Hartford Avenue properties, and by putting in the sidewalks and directing that section of water towards the street, we're creating a better situation. If you're going to start moving sidewalks around them, we're not allowing the water to run off to the street. We're just letting it go back onto people's properties. So we're not making it any better. Our objective is to do no harm. In other words, make it better than it is now.
And one other thing, when concerning the driveway aprons, there will be a lip, about an inch lip from the surface of the road to the elevation of the ramp, something like an inch, right?
It's 1.5 inches, and that's a town requirement. And that 1.5 inches is to prevent the gutter flow from moving into the driveway.
Now, given some of the rainstorms and stuff, is that 1.5 inches likely to be able to direct volumes of water between the catch basins from not overflowing that and running into the yards, do you think?
It all depends on the type of storm. The other thing that needs to be balanced with that is the potential tripping hazards of raising. You could make it 4 inches, and so it's all depends on, but then you run into the situation of vehicles need to traverse that gap, snow plows, and those kinds of things. So it's very common to see 1.5 inches as a lip, but it really all depends on what kind of storm you're talking about. And as you might imagine, there's an infinite amount of storms, very similar to a catch basin. Catch basins are a standard. Great. They all look the same. And again, they all default back to a DOT standard. Those are designed with a reasonable estimation of storms and those kinds of things. But we've all seen situations where under extreme rain events, catch basins even have been overwhelmed. So it's one of those things that they're factored in with what can be reasonably anticipated. However, knowing that there could be unusual storm events that simply overwhelm the facilities.
But, during the presentation, if we were able to say that 90% of the time, this 1.5 inches would divert the water properly, obviously for a hurricane or a tropical storm, that all bets are off. But just to give the comfort that what now may be a problem will likely not be a problem going forward.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a great point. And that's exactly what we're in the process of calculating now. We want to try to get it down to some sort of engineering statement, right? That's kind of based on an analysis. So we are actually working on that now. Yeah, we will be able to do that.
Excellent.
I'd also like to address Sandy Butcher's comments. Um, when we began this project, there was sort of a verbal commitment from the town to plow the sidewalks or shovel the sidewalks in the winter. Can we, as a committee, assure Sandy and everyone else on Hartford Avenue that the town will take responsibility for clearing those sidewalks of snow in the winter? Or at the very least, if they don't do that, not hold the homeowners responsible for clearing the sidewalks?
Jim, do you know what the situation is on the lower part of Hartford Avenue? When we don't have many people around, are they plowed or just left?
They're just left for the most part. People shovel out their driveways and sort of call it a night. I mean, it's not busy down here in the winter at all.
Yeah.
People
Well,
tend to.
that's one of the negatives of sidewalks being put in throughout town. We do the Lime Street sidewalks because we have a lot of residents here, and we have this machine with a big brush. But you can imagine if we had to do Cross Lane and Sound View and other places, it's difficult. So in a situation where it's seasonal now, as people with sewers and all that might start living there year round, that might change the nature of it, and sidewalks might need to be shoveled. And I think we wouldn't want to make a blanket commitment forever, but things change. So if it became more of a year-round situation, it might be that in a remote area like that, it would be a challenge to have the town shovel all these sidewalks throughout town.
I think probably, and not speaking for the homeowners on Hartford Avenue, but I would assume a bigger part of their concern is that they will be held responsible for shoveling sidewalks. Like, will the town start dinging them, a $50 fine every snowstorm if they don't shovel?
If the practice has been it hasn't been shoveled, we would, unless somebody really made a lot of noise about it, we would probably continue that neglect. If it became where we were being forced to do it for some reason, then we would that would create something. We have six or seven people plowing roads and so forth. So getting around to doing a mile or two of sidewalks would be kind of challenging. So I think if we just say you don't have to shovel it for the moment, but don't make a guarantee for all time, I think would be the way to go, because you don't know what may happen down the line.
I just want to be clear. People ask us, what should we say, and how should we approach it? Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's an ordinance that requires that the homeowners shovel the sidewalk, and I think that would have to be some sort of policy or ordinance for the town to mandate that.
If that were to come, Frank, I think we wouldn't want to have an agreement to certain homeowners saying you're absolved forever from,
Well, but I think we can reasonably say, I mean, just from a group, that if the home is seasonal and the people obviously aren't there in the wintertime, we really can't hold them responsible for shoveling the sidewalk. If it is, however, a year-round home, then
well, take for instance Lime Street. If a house on Lime Street was seasonal, but the sidewalk is used fairly often, the homeowner would be obliged to have somebody take care of it in their absence, let's say. Right now, the town does it. That's not, I don't think anybody has been guaranteed on Lime Street that they will never have to shovel the sidewalks, but that's been the case. An ordinance could come along, in which case that responsibility could be forced onto the homeowner. So I think if we just leave it vague and say at this point there'd be no intention of forcing homeowners in a seasonal situation like this to plow sidewalks for no purpose, that should suffice. It doesn't give ultimate comfort to either party.
Yeah, I tend to agree that we can't deal in absolutes here, because we don't know what's going to happen 5, 10, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road. Mary Jo, everybody's muted.
I hear you.
I was just going to add to that up to this point, it has been discussed in the past for an ordinance, but the Board of Selectmen, up to any discussions that we've had, never wanted to impose an ordinance. And the main reason that Lime Street is, the sidewalks are done is because there are a lot of pedestrians, even in the winter time, and a lot of school children that walk to school. So, you know, I would agree with Tim that each individual situation is considered and each time period is considered, you know, what's going on today versus 10 years ago. So, you know, it is very quiet down at Soundview in the wintertime, and there has not been any need to address the sidewalks.
Okay, any other comment? All right, can we address our schedule again for our next meeting?
Do you think we needed a meeting before 2 weeks are done? I would think that, other than scheduling some time with residents, I don't know that we need anything before the second week in August. Or is that waiting too long? Kurt?
I will be on vacation until August 10th. So I would recommend or propose that we line meetings up for maybe that following Saturday, the 25th.
22nd.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I'm looking at the wrong month. Thank you, Mary Jo. So yeah, and I guess my vacation coincides with I guess a good juncture as we sit here and wait for DOT. And I just want to confirm, as I might have forgotten to mention earlier, I have the rest of the team standing by. So if DOT does get back to us while I'm away, nothing will be held up. They will be able to jump on everything. And I will be maintaining, given these remote working setups, full access and connectivity to my office and Craig Babowitz and Rick at District 2 and everything. So we won't miss a beat. But yeah, I think it's very reasonable to think that we could set those up for. So let me look at the correct day. So yeah, I mean, we could even start looking at August 15th as because I'll be back on the 8th, August 8th. So we could start looking at our first date for that sort of get together as August 15th.
Yeah.
We could,
It also gives us time to get the attorneys to approve all of the documents.
Yeah, that's really my
block
concern.
out those 3 Saturdays, 15, 20, and 28 conceivably, and see what homeowners can come when, how many want to come, how many need to come, and then start matching up. And if we figured out how long we would offer for a maximum time frame per person, then we can, you know, try to keep it for a morning.
Yep. Yeah, we could start at like 8 a.m. and wrap up based on, you know.
Kurt, what do you think is a reasonable time for each homeowner? Do you think 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or does it need to be longer?
I think 30 minutes is probably very reasonable. And for the ones that are closer to Shore Road, where there's really not much of anything going on, you know, it'll probably be 10 minutes. For some of the other ones where there may be like fencing and whatnot, you know, those will probably be closer to a half hour, I imagine.
Okay.
So if we propose maybe the 15th and the 22nd is individual meetings, and the 24th is being our next, you know, group meeting, which is Monday. Does that work? I mean, that it's a month away for a group meeting, but we'll have these smaller, you know, individual meetings in the meantime.
I think my comfort level would be to sort of have a review of what we're going to discuss with the homeowners before that. So, perhaps Tuesday the 11th is the primary. I don't know if anyone is going to be around, if that would work for people, but that gives Kurt time to get back from his vacation and meet with his team. And maybe we could have a short meeting on the 11th to identify who we've heard from as far as homeowners go. If we've heard that are people that are fine, we wouldn't include them in our meetings, and then Kurt would know what he has to prepare when. So if we could meet on the 11th, I think I would feel more comfortable having a dry run, if you will, and that works for people's time schedule. I would like to propose that we meet by WebEx for a meeting on the 11th, time to be determined here.
I think that's great. I'd like to see what the homeowner package is going to include on the 11th too. So if we can get some of those in advance, I think that might be helpful. Streamlining our meeting for the 11th, rather than you having to go over each one, Kurt. We just see it, and if we have a question, we can bring it up.
Yep, that's absolutely, yeah, I can have that ready to go on the 11th.
Okay. All right, time that meets with everybody's schedule.
Generally, mornings are tough for me.
Okay.
So either, it's possible around 1, but after 3 is more guaranteed. But I understand if people have to do it earlier.
How about 3 o'clock on August 11th? That gives Kurt a little more time too.
3 o'clock's fine with me.
All right, I'll get the WebEx invite. Jim?
Everything's sort of theoretical for me right now because work schedule is really changing very rapidly. So
Okay.
I will put that in and I'll do my best.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys. And then we'll have to volunteer for the 15th and the 22nd to support BS in these meetings. I can volunteer for the 15th. I will not be available on the 22nd. Just putting that out.
Depending on time, I would be more than happy to be available both days.
Thank you.
I'm there a lot, and I think it's important, for
Yep.
if at all possible, for me to be part of those, so to help with the homeowners.
Why don't we look at the 28th just in case the people just won't meet on the 15th, just as safety valve for availability. We try to fill the earlier times, but just in case.
You mean that Saturday the 29th, Tim?
The Saturday, the 29th, right. Just in case one of the other dates, none of the homeowners will be available or something, I'm saying, I don't know.
Is the 22nd a possibility? So we have it just 1 week?
I want availability for all 3 days.
Oh, okay. Yep.
15, 22, 29, and then we'll try to cluster people, obviously, into 2 of those. I don't know how many homeowners we're talking about, all told. I think the ones with the problems that we're aware of might be, 7 or 8 of them, maybe?
Not even that many. I mean, some of the work is so minor, the little grass driveway, putting in that little section of reinforced turf. There's probably really only 5 to 6 that have anything. Yeah, it's a small number.
2 days should be more than adequate.
Yeah.
But just in case an odd thing happens and people are not available on the 22nd, just the 29th, if people are, let's learn everyone's availability for those 3 different dates, and we'll try to cluster with 2 of them.
All right. And again, when we get to this point, the request to meet will go out. I would assume the town can mail the letter out to everybody to the homeowner of record where the tax bills are.
And, yeah, and we can get some of the locals to help us too. But, okay, so Mary Jo, are you available on the 29th if needed?
No,
So only the 15th.
correct.
Frank?
Yeah, right now the Saturdays are open for me, you know. I once again, I prefer not to chew up all 3 Saturdays.
No, I think we would
Yeah.
work to make only 2, but just in case. Jim?
Weekends are really tough for me, Tim. I'm pretty much have to be at work straight through. So, I mean, I can try. And if I get an opportunity, it's kind of what I do these days. I'm just
Okay.
sneak out. I will. But I can't really commit right now.
Okay. Bonnie? Bonnie, are you hearing us?
No, I wasn't hearing you.
Oh,
Weekends are tough on me as well. I'm not usually in town on weekends, but I can look at my schedule and let you know.
all right, well, it'll be kind of contingent on what the people say. Okay, and then, do we miss anyone that's present today? So we'll check some of the other numbers.
Eric Olson hasn't been able to join us. He would be other committee member. And what's your schedule like, Tim, for those days?
I think I could do them.
Okay.
But we're limited to the morning, of course.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, all right, so we'll work on that and put that information out to obviously the committee and homeowners. And we're going to have another meeting, 3 p.m., 8/11. And we've already, any other discussion on schedule? All right, well, we approved our minutes. Last thing on our agenda is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Right
Thank
up.
you.
Bye
Thank
now.
you.
Right.